Hi again everybody! Welcome to the third part of this tutorial called Learn to use AutoCAD in 60 minutes. Here I'm going to focus on creating and inserting blocks, work with layers, how to print a project, and adding text to your drawings. Let's start! Until here, I taught you commands to draw objects and modify them, but I haven't mentioned any units for the dimensions. When I was drawing lines, I said, draw a line with dimension of 50 or 100. I didn't say if it was meters, millimeters, inches or feet, but I'm going to talk about this now. First of all, AutoCAD uses adimensional units. This means that it's up to me to decide what is the unit of a line that has length of 20, 50 or 100. It's very simple. Let's suppose I want to make a project in millimeters. That's the unit I usually work with. I want to insert a line with 5 millimeters of length. I draw the line as usual, and when I want to set up the length, I type 5. Then, I'm going to insert a line that measures 1 meter. I do the same, but this time, for the length I type 1000, because, as you may know, 1 meter is 1000 millimeters. Now, let's go to the Unit Properties window. I type Units and press Enter. Here, on the Length section at the left, you can choose the format for units of measure. If you work in millimeters or meters, you should use decimal units. Instead, in some countries it's more common to use inches and feet. In this case, engineering or architectural units are more suitable. Below, you can set the precision. In this drawing, I consider the units millimeters, and I don't need decimals, so I choose the first option. At the angle side, I can choose the units for angles. Most of the time I use decimal degrees, but there are others here that could eventually be more suitable for you. The units in insertion scale are used only when I insert objects or drawings from a different file. Usually, when we start learning AutoCAD, I don't need to insert anything external. But, in my opinion, it's better to specify the unit. I click on millimeters. When I finish, I click on OK to exit. Layers. Layers is how AutoCAD organizes objects. For example, have a look to this file. Here I have 2 floor plans. It's a proposal for converting offices in flats. So, instead of having the objects all together, I decided to organize them in different layers. I am going to click on this icon to open the Layer Properties Manager. Here you can see that I created layers to group different categories of objects. For example, I placed the windows in one layer, the walls in another, and I did the same for the doors, text labels, and so on. There are also other advantages in using layers. I can set up specific colors to distinguish them. Another thing. For easy access, I can drag this window to the left, and then I click on this icon to hide it automatically. Then I just need to drag over the tab to see the layers. Now I am going to explain to you how we can work with layers and tell you some considerations. New layer. If I want to create a new layer, I click on a blank space on this window with the right button. Then I click on New Layer. Then I can set up a name for the new layer, for example stairs. And if I click on the color For example, I can change it to the one that I want. I'm going to choose this yellow. Under line type, I have a continuous line by default. However, if I click on load, I can find several line types, dashed lines or other formats. Clicking on this light, I can turn off a layer. For example, I'm going to turn off the layer doors, and you can see those objects disappearing from the screen. There is also the mode freeze. Even it looks like it has the same effect as turning it off, freezing a layer releases it from memory. You can notice the difference in the performance when you work with very large drawings, especially freezing layers that contain loads of 3D objects. Now, suppose that I want to move these objects to the layer stairs. I have to select them, go to the Layer tab, and change to stairs. You can see that they changed the color. Then, I want to draw a new line in a specific layer. First, choose the layer and then I can draw the line. It's simple. Always specify the layer before drawing to avoid changing it after. Isolate layers. To isolate a layer, I can click on this icon. Then I click on one object of the layer that I want to isolate. This operation locks all the objects inside the other layers, meaning that I cannot edit them. Now, this is useful for me to modify objects from this layer text. For example, I want to move all the text to the left. I activate the command move, open a selection window to select the objects, click for a base point, move left and click again. To restore all layers that were locked before, I click on the icon right below and isolate. Layer 0. If I move the pointer over the layer properties, you can check here the layer 0. This is the default layer anytime I start a new file. In any project, I recommend to you to keep this layer without objects there. You cannot rename it or delete it. However, this layer can be useful for creating blocks, which is what I'm going to explain on the next section of this video. Sometimes we draw something that it's easier if it would be a single unit. For example, a door. If we want to copy it, I have to select all the objects that compound the door. If we convert all these objects to a block, they act like a single object. So, I want to convert this door to a block. As it's on the floor plan, to be easier to select it, I'm going to isolate the layer where the objects are located in. Click on the icon Isolate and click on any object of the door. Press Enter and the layer doors became isolated. Let's use the command Copy. Now, it's very easy to select only the door with the selection area. That's because all the other layers are locked. Press Enter and I can copy the door outside the plan. Creating a block. Before creating a block, I'm going to move these objects to the layer 0. By doing that, I can later move the block to the layer I desire and it gets its properties. I select the objects and I'm going to click on the icon Create a block. The block definition window appears. Here, I can set up a base point for the door. I choose this corner here. Back to the window. I have to write a name for the block. I name it as Door. When I finish, I click on OK. So, the block is created. If I click on any part of the door, you can see that this is now a single object. Now I'm going to change the block to the layer that I want. And you can see, while I'm scrolling here, it changes the color to match the new layer. However, if I created the block with objects in another layer, for example stairs, I'm going to create the block. Then I'm going to change the layer of the block to another one, but it keeps the properties of the layer stairs. The layer 0, on the other hand, means that the objects don't have any layer assigned. Check out this example. Add doors to the floor plan. As you know, I have my new block here. With the command copy, I can insert them easily in the floor plan. I just have to click on the endpoints of these lines. A great advantage of using blocks is the ease of modifying them. I go to this button that says Edit Block. Then I choose the block Door. I click on OK. This is the block editor workspace, and also a new tab for editing blocks appeared on the ribbon. Here I can make all the changes that I want to this block. For example, I'm going to draw a circle here. Then I close the block editor and save the changes. As you can see, all the block references of the block door have a circle inside, which can save amounts of time. In this section, I am going to explain how you can print in AutoCAD. I know that a lot of people struggle with this topic, as it's a bit complex, but I will explain the most important tips to make it as simple as possible. First of all, look at the tabs located here. The first one that says Model is where we can make all the project. This workspace seems to have an infinite area, so we can make the drawings that we want. But of course, the larger the file, the slower the computer gets. The tabs that say Layout are used for printing. I'm going to Layout 1. Here, there is a paper with a specific size, and these drawings is what it would be printed. To print properly, we should specify the paper size that we need. I am going to click here with the right button, and then click on Page Setup Manager. In this window I choose Layout 1 and click on Modify. So here you have the page setup. First, we should choose the printer by clicking on this tab. If we want to save a page in PDF, there are several options here regarding the file size and print quality. I usually use this one, DWG to PDF. To change the paper size, I have to click on this tab. For this case, I want A4, this one. On drawing orientation, I choose between landscape and portrait. Finally, click OK and close to save changes. Now that we have the paper size, we have to decide what we want to print on there. On the Layout tabs, there are two spaces, Paper and Model space. We can switch between them here. Currently, we are in the Paper space. If I apply Zoom or Move, it works for the paper. Notice this rectangle here where I have the drawings. It's a viewport, and it's like an access to the project. I am going to double-click inside, and it switches to the model space. Now, if I zoom, the paper doesn't move, just the objects that I drew. As well, if I draw a line here, it will appear exactly in the same place in the Model tab. Change the size of the viewport. I'm going to click on Model to switch to the paper space again. At this moment, I can select the viewport. Then, with the grips, I can modify it to cover the entire paper. Double-click to go to the model space. Now, I can zoom in the drawing or put a specific scale for the paper. It's here. I specify, for example, 1/100. When I finish, I am able to print the drawing. Click here with the right button, and this time I click on Plot. Continue to plot a single sheet. Here I can click on OK to print, or in this case to export the file as a PDF. Some printing tips. Hide the viewport. When I plot the file, the viewport appears by default on the paper. If you want to hide it, follow the next steps. Go to the Layer Properties Manager and create a new layer just for the viewport. Switch to the paper mode. Click on the viewport and move it to its own layer. Then, go again to the Layer Properties and freeze the layer. You can see that it's not appearing anymore. So, if you save as a PDF or print a file right now, the viewport is not visible. Have different colors on the viewport. The default AutoCAD workspace uses a dark background, with a reason to be better for the eyes when working for several hours. Because of that, it's common to use light colors in our project. The problem is when we switch to the layout mode, the colors can be too light for a white paper. For example, the doors are a bit hard to see. Don't worry, it's possible to set up different colors for printing. First, you have to double-click on the viewport to switch to the model space. Go to the Layer Properties and you can see this column with the label VP Color. If in your version is not located next to the Color tab, look at the right end of this table. Then I'm going to change the color for the layer doors. Click here and put this one, for example. Now it's much better. Insert text. I am going to explain to you quickly to insert text in AutoCAD. It's not hard and there are two types of text, single line and multiline text. I will start with single line text. First, we insert the start point. Then, this line specifies our text height. I can either click or specify a distance. I'm going to type 100. Press Enter and then I choose the direction. If I want to type horizontal text, I need a horizontal line. Now I can write anything, and when I finish, I click in a different place to write another text, or if I don't want more, I can just press Enter or Escape. Now let's see the multiline text. Activate the command. Choose first point, and I specify a selection area to fit the text in, but just the horizontal length. The height of the rectangle doesn't matter. Then I can write the text. Unlike the single text, this time a temporary tab for editing text appears on the ribbon. Here I have options for editing a paragraph and much more. If I want to change the height, I need to select the text and change it here. As you notice, it's very simple to write text in AutoCAD. We have reached the end of the Start course in AutoCAD 2D. Now you are able to start making your own projects. But don't forget, even if you understood everything that was discussed in these 3 videos, you need practice to solidify the knowledge you got here. Of course, as AutoCAD is a very complex program, still there is a lot more to know. So, if you want to keep forward, I encourage you, click on one of these videos or go to my channel page and check out the playlists there. But first, don't forget to subscribe to CAD in Black. Thank you very much for watching and see you next time!